Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Essential Libertarians. I'm Kareem Mays, your host, with my amazing co-host Daniel Betro. How are you doing today, Daniel?
I am good. How about yourself?
Doing good, doing good. If you read the WhiteHouse.gov, they're wishing you a happy Merry
Yeah.
Christmas if you got a certain medical procedure, but if you didn't, they're wishing you some severe illness and death. So when people are like, "I don't want to secede," I don't know if the federal government saying they want you to not live no more, maybe you could consider not being part of this whole thing. Like, okay, thanks. Winter, severe death and illness. It's been fun. We tried this. I'm going to write you the same note that they wrote to England. Here you go. Have a good one.
I know. It's like it's so funny because I don't know why, but when he put that out, I heard it in Trump's voice, which was weird. The vaccinated, or excuse me, Fauci's voice. The vaccinated are gonna die. They're gonna get killed. It's gonna be sick. The unvaccinated, excuse me. What's funny about this is that all these numbers, all these statistics going around. There was a thread on Twitter from who was it that started the thread? It was I can't remember who it was. I'm drawing a blank here, but someone started a thread on Twitter and was like, "Hey, how do we know if the unvaccinated are dying more than the vaccinated?" And he just wanted questions. It's pretty straightforward. Like, where's the data? Show me statistics. And there was a lot of different threads on there for people who responded. And at the end of the day, every thread I saw was like, "Yeah, we just don't have enough data to sort of differentiate. We know in certain states it's some in the last few months that there has been more vaccinated than here's what the thread that I saw that really was like, okay, that's interesting. It's nothing concrete, but it's like 70% of the people, or over 70% of the people who've died from COVID in the last like year or so has been people over 65, and people over 65 are 95% vaccinated. That population is 95% vaccinated. Well, you say that maybe that 5%, which is around 1.9 million or so, okay, all of them could have died, but the probability of the 1.9 million people who were not vaccinated, who were over 65, only they died, that's statistically improbable. So maybe it's not 50-50, maybe it's more. I saw a lot of numbers like 40-50, 45-50, and I'm like, and there was some data there to kind of get to that sort of that point, like different bits and pieces of empirical data and statistics, but nothing concrete again. But it's like, okay, let's just say it's 35 or 40 to 50. Let's say 40% of all the people who died were vaccinated, and like 50% or a little over 50%, whatever it is, were unvaccinated. Okay, that's still like, you have to say to yourself, are the unvaccinated just dying at crazy rates, and are the vaccinated, are they safe? The point of this is, what I'm getting to is, with anything in life, anything, whether it be your children, your brother, your mother, your father, what you're doing to them when they get sick, when they get ill, when your kid gets the flu, when your brother might have some sort of a bad cold, right? The the treatment that you're giving has to provide a a a proportion of safety against the illness, because if it doesn't, then there's no point in continuing the treatment. It's like when you get sick, you're like, okay, I'm going to take this medicine and I have a 40% chance of not dying. And it's like, well, that's not really that much of a treatment. It's like, even if you're from the utilitarian perspective, it's not right. From the deontological perspective, it's not right. And from the medical standpoint, it's not
No.
right. It's like, this vaccine is not a vaccine. But again, the CDC,
Yeah.
so I'm going to excuse me. According to the CDC and the NIH, they changed the definition of the vaccine. But when you have to get a medical treatment every 9 months, as is required in Germany, and that's what you have to do for the rest of your life until you're dead, that is not a vaccine. That's a therapeutic. That's like basically like
That's a
something like
subscription thing.
chemotherapy, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
chemotherapy.
It's like saying, hey, put yourself on a subscription. At least the White House could be authoritarian, but they could be fun. Like Berman Supreme says he's a friendly fascist. They could say, hey, bring out the Monty Python scene, like have workers of the federal, like bring out you did, bring out you did. So I just that's what popped in my head when I saw that. I'm like, oh my god, this is dumb. But it's like the Black Plague, like bring out you did, bring out you did. Like I got one over here. So anyway, if you love the White House message, or if you didn't, or if you think it's ridiculous, which I think that's like 100% of the people watching this, then go to the LP Mises caucus. We don't threaten your life. So I know that's a low bar, but our message is pretty simple. No more wars, no more lockdowns, bailouts, or mandates. And you don't have to read White House Gov anymore if we succeed, because then hopefully we can find good methods of decentralization. You can learn about us by going to resource here and check out our actions and sign up, put in your first, last name, email, phone number, and state, and be part of the decentralized revolution.
And the way that I would define Mises is as that which abides and follows by the laws and principles of human nature from a biological standpoint, a psychological standpoint, which then leads to an economic standpoint. Because whether you know it or not, the evolutionary biological sort of realm is intertwined into the economy realm. This is why certain ideologies like fascism, socialism, feudalism, right? They don't work. They hurt more people than they help. There's certain societal economic theories that they don't perform well, even if, which is like they perform well on paper, but that's not even true either. But they look well, okay, they look good, they look like they'll be all right. People are going to be a one consequence is going to happen and not another, and then you try it, and that just does not be the case. And you have to look at your economy from a evolutionary biological perspective, and you have to say what works best for people based off of what people do and how people act. Well, it turns out that when people share, when people trade among each other, when people barter, when it's not a perfect market, but there's to the smallest extent possible, no government intervention, which right now you could even say that we're closer to fascism than we've ever been, right? I mean, the government involvement in businesses is absolutely crazy.
We're definitely, like I think your friend Joseph said, a lot of people I hear say we're living in a capitalist society, and say no. If I could debunk two things, more importantly than all the medical procedures and this and that, because to me that's that issue will go away. I don't know how it will, but it will resolve itself. More than even all the wars, more than even talking about Yemen, more than the two things I want to get on people are, if they can walk away with anything, is this is not a capitalist society. We're not living in a free market. Go look at the definition of capitalism for yourself. See what you think. Don't take my word for it. And anarchy is not chaos. It's simply a decentralized way of providing, maintaining, creating rules of social order. So with that being said, let's get into the fun part. So apparently Fauci's big sad, as my friend, my bandmate would say, because he heard some mean words on the mainstream media.
I know this is this just shows you the absolute entitlement of these people, right? Here's the deal: is I've had a few girlfriends. I've been around a lot of people in my life, had a lot of experiences with individuals, and typically when people say things, I don't take it as personal. Like if someone just says you're this or that, and it's just absolutely false. Yes, when you're with someone a long enough time and they continue to say things that are mean, rude, disrespectful, vile, vicious, malicious, malevolent, it begins to hurt you, not necessarily because it's true, but because it's not nice when the people you care for and the people that you have feelings for and love are treating you like shit. But when just a random person out in the street says, hey, you're this, and I'm like, I'm not that, I don't feel a need to respond or even defend myself. I don't feel the need to do that because I know it's a lie. So when Fauci is kind of saying that they need to take this back about the kill shot, I believe it was, it's like, why do they need to take it back? Why? I mean, like, think about it. Is this bothering you, Fauci, someone who hasn't really practiced being a medical doctor in almost 2 decades? Is this bothering you, Fauci, the highest paid employee in the federal government right now? Is this bothering you, Fauci, the guy who's literally on media, mainstream media, every damn day? Is this bothering you, Fauci, the one who has $1 million budget documentary about you on or whatever it was, Disney? I can't remember. Like, it just seems a little peculiar to me. That's all. Hello?
I forgot to unmute myself.
Oh, you're good.
All right, so let me break this down. I think from a psychological standpoint, because I will say why I think he's not justifying this. When I get one, like, I do Fiverr. I think it's one of my tabs open. and I have like 1,300 good reviews. The one bad review that bothers me. I'm like, why did he say this? Like, I've been doing this for a while. Doesn't he? So to me, if you're up on top of the world and one person's like, you're not that good. Like you suck at this, which is going to happen because then I think to me what it takes away that like I'm the man. You can't. It takes away your superiority complex, and you get mad, and you're like, you become like a dog that's just barking at people. Like, no, everybody loves me. I think these people live so much in their own bubble because mainstream media never ever says anything bad about them. And just for the record, I don't like Fox News. I don't watch Fox News. I have no interest in Fox News as far as I'm concerned. Shows like these to take away viewers from Fox and CNN, take away viewers from all big mainstream media because I don't like mainstream media. I feel that they're always being pushed and prod to say whatever the corporate establishment wants for the most part. I feel they work together more than most people like to admit. But I will say this. I think the reason he's big sad and he's saying, oh, fire this guy is because he said something he didn't like and he just can't handle that. Ooh, Fox News has an opinion. The mainstream media said something that they shouldn't have. It's like when someone on CNN comes up and is like, well, the economy's not doing so good. Inflation is crazy. Maybe we shouldn't be pushing like different theories on people. Maybe we should allow people bodily autonomy. Oh, we can't, like, oh, I'm sorry, you can't be on here. And then the connection just happens to go bad. So yeah, that's what I think Jesse Waters said. He said he should be fired. He said people should like ambush him with questions, in my opinion, not like, oh, okay, I'm going to take you down. And why not? If you're the highest paid employee in the federal government, you think the federal government works so well, why are you so afraid of competition? To me, that's the difference, the fundamental difference between the government and the free market. They're both corporations, but if you have no recourse, you get in this like high bubble thing. Like if I ambush Joe Rogan, who's the biggest podcast guy, and I'm like, why do you support DMT? Or why do you support this? Why do you support alternative? Like, well, why do you do? I bet he would answer me, and it wouldn't be a big thing. But Fauci's like, yeah. The nice thing is they're not going to do it. So I kind of like to see establishment figures fighting against each other. It's kind of fun. It's entertaining to me. I'm going to skip the next article and go to this. Tim Pool. Tim Pool is streaming about this right now. He has a little bit more viewers, but we're going to cover it as well. I'm going to try and hit it from a different angle so you can compare my take and what Tim's take is, which I don't know what it is. I have a feeling, but compare my take with Luke's take, with Tim's take, and see what you think. So Mayor Lightfoot, who, in my opinion, like when I look at her pictures, I'm like, man, you're super stressed. Like go. Like,
I know, take a nap and leave office. I mean, really, like, you know what the funniest thing I've seen in the last 6 months was? I'm telling you, I died laughing. I watch a comedian named Tim Dillon all the time, right? I really love him. Like, I think he's one of the best comedians right now. Like he's now, when it comes to stand-up, I think he has a lot of work to do, but his podcast that's what he should do. It's so perfectly funny, and it's just so hilarious. But I don't know if you heard about this. It wasn't that long ago. Lori Lightfoot was exposed for writing negative like Yelp reviews about, I think, a restaurant and I think a driver of that sort, like just something like that. And she was just vicious in her review. Oh, she didn't do this. And then it turned out that the lady who she wrote the review about said that she completely lied and that she was rude and that she was this and this was that. And basically everything that Lori Lightfoot had said is what she did. And you had multiple people saying this. And Tim Dillon obviously had fun and, poked at it. But it's like these people, when you understand, I want this to be installed into everyone's head who are listening, right? One thing that you will learn when it comes to psychology, right? Advertisers have a very good understanding of it. They have a good understanding of positive emotions related to certain colors. They have a good understanding of the psychological technique repetition, and associating certain images and certain pictures and even certain phrases and language with positive emotions and images. So they understand this stuff. They have groups of psychologists who understand this. But when you understand the if you look at most people project, and most people project because they don't know they're projecting. It's like, so you're saying someone else is this. Well, how are you entirely sure that that someone else is not you? How are you entirely sure that what you criticize the most, what you dislike the most, is not you projecting, as Jung would say, your shadow? And basically, Jung had this theory about the shadow, which is like you have a monster inside you, a villain. That's that person who thinks those evil thoughts, right? We all have those thoughts. Maybe you thought about killing someone. Maybe you thought about hurting someone. Maybe you've thought about stealing, breaking something. That those thoughts that are there, right?
Question actually for you, Dan. I'm actually not. I've read a little bit of Jung. I like some of his stuff. Is that like Freud's id? I think it's id, super ego, and ego. Like
not quite, a little different, but
okay.
yes, Jung took a lot from Freud, but also was like not basically Jung was like, not everything's focused on your repressed sexuality, right? That's what Freud was at the end of the day, which makes sense because he, it's on record that he did rape and molest, I think, his niece, and there's a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah, there's some weird stuff in Freud about like, hey, are you into your mom and stuff like that. So I'm not trying to make jokes, but
yeah. Freud was basically like almost everything is sort of entrenched around the idea that people repress their sexual interest and desires, which then leads to negative thinking, and the unconscious is built mainly around suppressed sexual thoughts. When Jung was like, no, that's not entirely true. That is a case, but it's not the only case. And Jung was like, you have this villain inside you, right? And we all have this villain. Now, the way that you self-actualize yourself, or as Jung would say, individuation, which is the process of actualizing who you are unconsciously, bringing those unconscious motives and motifs to your conscious mind, is integrating all your dark qualities into your conscious mind, right? Integrating it.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, you're good.
Didn't he say the quote, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule you and control your life?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and I understand what you're saying down there, that there is the villain there. There's as Jordan Peterson said, like a dangerous, a person who's not dangerous is not a good man. A person who's a good man, someone who's dangerous and has it voluntarily under control. And I understand. As far as I'm concerned, people say negative things about you. I think one famous, I think it was a pop star or someone like that, it said, most haters are lovers that just don't know it yet, because they want to be where you want to be at, but they're mad because for whatever reason they're not there. And that can be competency, that can be luck, that can be a number of factors. But to get into what Lori Lightfoot is doing here with Chicago, other than when she's not writing bad Yelp reviews, what is she doing? So the city of Chicago is imposing a wide-ranging medical procedure mandate that will affect bars, restaurants, gyms, and more after the first of the year. Lightfoot announced the new requirements on Tuesday in response to the surge in Rona. Apparently, I'm not convinced exactly that even though cases are going up means the fatalities are going up. So keep that in mind. But chances are that everyone knows someone with Rona right now. I actually don't. It's everywhere. Maybe. I doubt it. This new mandate applies to anyone 5 and older who's eligible to get it, and will take place January 3rd, and it's likely to remain in effect for several months, which is ridiculous. 5 and older for 1 and 2. Didn't we already try this? Like, to me, government is just the basis of one bad idea, then you reform that idea. Oh, we messed this up. We need education reform. We need war reform. We need to fix this. Oh, someone didn't bomb the Middle East enough. I'll bomb it more. Don't do that enough. Maybe you should just leave things alone. Leave things alone. Maybe the best path is negative, but nobody wants to talk about that. Oppenheimer said shortly before he died, it's quite clear the world is going to hell, which it is. He said the only way it might not is if we don't try to stop it from doing so. So maybe let's not try and stop it from doing so. So if you go out to eat in Chicago, you have to not just bring your mask, but also your papers. And if you're going to be inside for more than 10 minutes, I guess there's a guy with a stopwatch, like, you've been here 9 minutes and 55 seconds. Boop. Like, okay, you're good. Or I don't have it. Like, go, leave. This new wave is more deadly. No, it's not. Look at our episode, talking about this and the Omicron thing, spreading faster and causing profound harm. No, it's not. No, it's not. This is all lies. People have to understand, yeah, okay, the Omicron thing they made up is new, but it's not more deadly. I think the doctor even said it can help create immunity to this. To be clear, I've not been this concerned about Rona since the early days. So what do you have to do? You have to show this thingy at restaurants, bars, entertainment venues where food and beverages are being served, sports arenas, and indoor fitness. This is kind of weird because, like, why are they getting kids involved? At Chet Aquarium, this person, Leland Etcher, enjoyed the day with her daughters, 8, Daphne, who was 8, and took the procedure, and the 3-year-old who's not old enough to be, for her getting the mandates and no problem. And she's saying, oh, well, if it keeps people safe, they're happy to do it. What was Michael Malice's quote from the guy? I can't remember. The average person doesn't want to be free. They simply want to be safe. I could keep going on and on. It's a long article. You can find it at ABC 7 Chicago. My thing is this. People need to start saying no and start saying, I'm going to do regardless of what this is. I'm not going to support businesses that do it. You don't have to be like mean or anything. Just, hey, if these businesses are supporting it and going along with the narrative, I won't support them. If they're not, I'll support them. And that will create 2 different kind of ecosystems. And you know what? Food trucks are probably not going to abide by this. So I bet you food trucks will park in front of restaurants or around restaurants and say, hey, oh, you can't go in the restaurant because you didn't want to take it? All right, hey, I'll give you a Chicago hot dog. And then that was the wrong accent, but here, they're going to give you a hot dog. You can go on your way. Same thing with other places and other cities that are doing this. Support local businesses that are resisting this. Support other people like personal trainers that are resisting this, like the guy in New Jersey. I think Ian Smith is his name. There are people who are going to be against this. You need to support them, and you need to put your support, ideas, rhetoric to saying this is wrong. The state should not determine what businesses do. The state can't even balance a budget, so tell them to get out of the way. Otherwise, if you don't, you're going to have people like Lightfoot, her replacement, their replacement, trying to run your life because you let them. I love George Carlin's thing about airport security. It's just one way of reducing your liberties, reminding you they can screw with you anytime they want, as long as you'll put up with it. As long as you'll put up with it. Maybe stop putting up with it. As far as I'm concerned, if a business, I go in there and they say wear a mask, do this, do that, have a nice day. And I've had that happen a few times in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I think there was one venue that they said, okay, well, show me a negative test and whatever. And I'm like, okay, my band's playing here, came out to Ohio, so fine. Yeah, I'm not gonna fault you, okay, if one time you went to a restaurant or whatever. But here's the thing. What I would say is, for the most part, you need to resist this. You just need to say no. If you say no, things that are happening in Chicago, in New York, in Boston, and other big cities, they will lay off. They're not super tough. You just need to say no. Otherwise, in the next story, I'll just show a case where they're going to create so many loopholes, so many obstacles to jump over, so many things to comply with. It'll be impossible. So that's what I have to say about Chicago. You just need to say no. Don't support businesses. You support this. You don't have to get violent. You don't have to do anything crazy. I don't support any of that. I support people, average everyday people, just not complying. Saying no goes a long way.
Yeah. And here's the deal is right now in the state where my family's located, they're vaccinated. But one thing that has been very scary to think about, really 2 things. And I'm going to touch on this first thing first, obviously, and that's the fact that it's like, okay, there's there's the idea that to get out of something terrible, you have to all act brave. And by acting brave, we're eventually going to get out of this terrible thing, right? So everybody acts brave, and they're like, I'll take one for the team, such as Jordan Peterson. And this is where it kind of surprised me that he was sort of malleable enough and was manipulated by his own state to think that because he got the vaccine, that his own government would leave him alone. And he turns out that he regrets taking the vaccine because that wasn't the case, which kind of shocked me. You'd think someone like Jordan Peterson, but again, he's for one, he's believe it or not, he's an agreeable person, and he also it necessarily doesn't always see the tricks he knows that people play, right? So, and he also assumes that most people are genuinely capable of being good, and most people are not malevolent. Now, he's no one to be naive, but I think he can be naive, right? But anyways, so one thing that has been scary is that so everyone was brave. Everybody did that thing that it's going to get us out of this awful time, and it's going to bring us back to the normal, the normal life. So, but eventually that bravery gets extended. And it's like, okay, you got to be brave twice. You got to be brave 2 times, right? But once you're brave 2 times, we're good. We're going to get out of this situation. We're going to bring everything back to normal, and things are going to change. And it's because you're being brave again. Now it's like, that bravery that second time wasn't enough. We need you to be brave a third time, right? And this third time, it's going to be it. This is going to be the last time that you have to be willing to undergo a certain medical treatment to bring everyone out in the rest of the world back to the normal world prior to COVID. So people do it. But then eventually people go, I'm not being brave. I'm being stupid and naive. And it takes only a matter of time for people to realize that they are not being brave. They are not being courageous. They are not being anything other than stupid and naive and falling for the tricks of a deceptive state, whether it be in the West or whether it be in the East. But at least we in the West have we have a lot more power to say no. Go to the East. You know what they do if you say no? They'll lock you up and kill you, execute you. China has executed the most billionaires in the world. They've executed somewhere around 16 to 17 billionaires because they speak out of line, have a lot of money, which then kind of lets them have a lot of power. And China doesn't want billionaires having power. That's why Jack Ma disappears, right? He disappears because he started getting out of line and saying stuff about China. Gone for two to 6 months, just gone. No one knew where he was. Boom, pops back up on the scene, and then started saying good stuff about China and spewing propaganda. And here's the deal. So we have power, and this is something the socialists say, right? The working class has leverage over the state. Now you may not think it, okay, but this is at the basis of the Marxist doctrine, right? This is at the basis of the Marxist doctrine, which is we need to bring materials and resources and equally distribute, which I disagree with, to the working class so they have leverage over others, and that the upper classes and castes cannot take advantage of the working class anymore. But right now, whether you know it or not, you have an exuberant amount of power. Okay, you may go to jail, right, for, let's just say, disobeying the orders, right? But guess what? You can get out of jail. You got a bail. And the probability of the FBI going in everyone's house and committing malevolence and putting everyone in jail and killing everyone is not going to happen, right? They may threaten you like they've done with the parents and the school boards. They may say you're a white supremacist. They may say you're a militant right-winger. But at the end of the day, you have your First Amendment right. But you don't have that if you don't participate in the responsibility it takes to keep it. As Jordan Peterson says, rights come with responsibility and accountability. And if you do not accept those two things, which are one and the same, you will lose your rights because they are not given to you. And the founding fathers made sure that no government gave anyone rights. They were unalienable, right? Yeah. And they were endowed by our creator, whether you believe in God or not. The notion is from the constitutional, from even the federalist perspective and the anti-federalist is like, we have rights not because the state grants them, but because it's self-evident, right? Self-evident that we have sovereignty of our own body. We have autonomy of our own body. That's why slavery was so bad. It wasn't because, it was always bad everywhere in the world. The majority of the world had slavery, right? We know that Britain basically got rid of slavery before we did. But the reason why it was so bad in America, because everyone everyone who knew the Constitution, which more people did, and knew what this country was founded on, knew that couldn't stand. It could not stand with the rights that we have, which is to be treated equal under whatever the deity, if it's the universe, if it's God, we are created equal with rights that no one gives to us. We are blessed with as soon as we have a pulse and come out of the womb. Okay, and I think even before you come out of the womb, I think you have rights. This is why I have a nuanced opinion on abortion, but I don't believe that people are going to keep taking this. They're not going to keep being stupid and naive. They're going to stand up. My parents who took both shots are now, they're like, and I'm talking to them on the phone, and they're like, I don't want to have to get another one. And then you have in Virginia and a lot of states where you're going to have this mandate. And a lot of businesses have 100 employees or more. I think it's over 45% of all businesses. So 45% of all people who don't want to get the 45% of all businesses are going to get rid of some people. Let's just say less than a quarter of people. There's a quarter of people out of this 45% who will not get the vaccine, not because that they don't want it. That might be probably, but also because they can't get it, right? There's millions of people who cannot medically get this vaccine because of different medical positions that they're in, which basically not just this vaccine, but a lot of vaccines. There's a lot of people who can't get a lot of vaccines. There's a lot of people who are very sensitive to certain chemicals. And I'm not going to get on the like this. I'm not going to try and substantiate a claim against the medical treatment. I'm going to substantiate a claim against the mandate of this medical treatment.
Exactly.
And so, go ahead.
What I was going to say is one reason the working class has the leverage over the state and even over it is because they actually produce something, whether you're a software engineer or whether you're a landscaper, even if you're doing sanitation engineer, which is a nice name for a janitor, you're actually producing something. The state doesn't produce anything. The state just
they don't.
You can argue there's government jobs, but if everyone said I'm not paying any or I'm paying it voluntarily, I think you'd either see no or a lot less.
Yeah, which is funny because this is from a different sort of foundation, but this was what propagated socialism. This right here, the idea that people cannot, that people are not, that they are not destined to be controlled by lords and things like feudalism in the Middle Ages. That's not good. People need leverage. And if everyone quit their job immediately, put it like this, right? The government, like you said, they don't create things. What the government's job is to do, right? And I'm not saying that we should keep the same government that we have because I believe the system is fundamentally, well, I think it's old, but I think parts of it that were originally decentralized, which is the whole idea of the states. Like we can keep that, but a lot of the federal sort of notions and even the Constitution has parts in it that I don't agree with because at the end of the day, doctrines get old and people forget their meaning and then people don't act out what the original meaning was. And then people how many people just know the Constitution now, right? Probably not a lot. But what I was getting at is that the one thing that they should do, and I think I talked to you about this, is they should protect the country's sovereignty, right? That's one thing. That is a major part that the government should protect us against not only invaders, but things like as far as border security, protect their citizens' sovereignty. 2, now this one's, they still want, it seems like, okay, I guess you could make a case that they're protecting people's sovereignty to a certain degree, but even the border is really, really bad. 2 is to manage the country's budget. Now that has to do with trades, that has to do with resources they're getting from other countries. They have to manage the country's budget and the large amount of money that goes into a country, right? It's a lot of money and it's not just one person, right? Not everyone's Elon Musk. You need lots of people who are competent and capable to run a country and manage the budget and make sure resources get distributed. Now that doesn't mean that our current state is what is needed to manage a budget. I think you can do a decentralized, closer to an anarchy, and still manage the budget and have it actually be more effective, right? I believe that.
Well, it's going to be almost impossible, in my opinion, with cryptocurrencies to do that, unless you're going to have like one person like, oh, here's all the Dogecoin, here's all the Ethereum, here's all the Tether transactions. It's going to be. That's why I even said like Steve Bannon, like, okay, tax the rich, maybe now, but he's like, we got to see what they're made. Like when you have decentralized things like Monero, good luck. good luck. Because
No, but that's a really good point, Kareem, that you made me think of. So I was thinking about this the other day. I was taking a walk around where I'm currently at right now, and I was thinking to myself, what do we have that's on our side? So I was going over a lot of things. I was going over the fact that a large portion of our country, believe it or not, is very awake to a lot of this stuff. Now, it's not whether they're awake or not. It's whether they're awake and they're willing to fight for what they don't want, what they know is morally wrong. Are they willing to stand up against tyranny, against authoritarianism, against identitarians, against politicians who are claiming to be one way but show a completely different, have a different manner in their personal life? And then I thought about our economic status, right? Because it's like I'm trying to work out this idea of anarchy, and I've been doing it for around 5 months now. I've been writing a lot of work on it, not for a book necessarily, but I might put it in a book. It's like, how could this work, right? And the something that I came up with, and I'm going to spoil alert, is something called the Articles of Decentralization, right? I'm working on this. Doesn't mean I'm going to publish it, but just something I thought of that to help, because writing things out makes you get them more structured, right? You're basically thinking, typing your thoughts, and then organizing your thoughts on paper and then rethinking it, which is just absolutely amazing. And I was like, cryptocurrency self-regulates and self-governs the economy. And I said, wait a minute. So you're telling me that there's this currency, cryptocurrency, that is so secure, no central state has been able to manipulate it. None, ever. And it's been around for 12 years now.
Even though China
get rid of it, they have to ban it.
Yeah, but they didn't even really. I was reading an article and I shared one that there's a billion people, over a billion people in China. They can make Jack Ma disappear because he has a lot of money and that's one dude, and it's essential. But they can't really do much. They can ban it, but there's underground, I guarantee.
They would have to completely ban the internet to get rid of cryptocurrency. And more importantly, they would have to ban they can't do it.
How's Xi Jinping going to get his propaganda out?
Exactly.
If he bans the internet. So if you ban the internet, the CCP could.
Yeah, and they do.
So they can't stop it. That's what got. One thing that happened around the same time was that I argued people like centralization is pretty good. I'm like, well, if it is, the biggest military just lost, in a sense, to a bunch of goat herders. Yeah, they killed more of them. Yes, you won the thing, but eventually, a bunch of goat herders took the country over, and it's in the same state. Second is, the largest authoritarian state can't stop a decentralized currency. I'm like, well, is that a good... it's not a perfect argument for decentralization. There are people who do bad things with Bitcoin. There are people who do, but the argument is that no central government can stop it. They can just try and slow it down. And even that doesn't work. So we'll have to see. I think the power goes back to the states. Things would be better. But I just want to prove to people, hey, if you do 3 hoops, they'll put a 4th one. How do I know that? I don't know that for sure, but I can guess because I look at a lot of people look at what's going on in the U.S. and that's cool. But I'm like, okay, I have the different things I'm looking at. So I was never huge into international news until the war on terror. And then I started looking at different things and I kept looking and different things would pop up. And, thank God for the We Are Change Telegram because they give me ideas. So in Israel, what are they going to do? 3 isn't enough if you're over 60. They're going to offer a 4th one in a bid to outpace Omicron, which makes everybody's freaking out with Omicron. And I'm just like, dude, the South African doctor said it's not that big of a deal.
That's how they're winning, though. Not everybody's freaking out about this. In fact, I've never met anyone who's freaking out about this. The media is making it seem as though a majority of the population are freaking out. But when you have South African doctors who literally found this variant and discovered it, and they're saying that they're disappointed in the world's reaction to it because it's much milder, and it seems to be not fully. It seems to be that the vaccine doesn't fully protect you against it, but there's a higher level of protection than Delta. And we know that Delta, remember that there was a whole buzz about Delta. It was more deadly than Omicron. And the vaccine wasn't perfect. Efficacy waned for Delta, but also efficacy wanes after 6 months anyway. You go from 80 to 95%, depending on the vaccine, to 50 or 60% in 6 months. So the idea is this is milder. The vaccines protect against it to a pretty decent degree. And a lot of people have medical treatments. And one thing that really sort of made me hopeful is it was an article I read, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, that of course it's Merck and Pfizer, but they're going to be offering
Ivermectin.
yeah, yes, basically that's literally what it is, but it's going to get approved for Omicron so people can take it at home, like a doctor can prescribe it. And I looked at it, I'm like, this looks a lot like sort of ivermectin and something of that nature. But again, not a medical doctor, go check out the article. You can actually pull that up. It's like Pfizer and Merck offer pill subscription at home. And I'm like, well, that's good. I mean, of course it's going to be Pfizer and Merck, but like, you know, it's just sad that it took 2 years for it to get right here when we knew we've had all these sort of pre-COVID treatments for years, since 2 months into COVID. You know, Dr. McCullough was talking about this to Congress, testifying in Austin, Texas, testifying. And it's just sad, man, because how many people lost their lives because they were told when they went to the hospital that there's nothing we can do but let you die.
Yeah, that's messed up. But that to me is the medical industrial complex. You know, people just think, okay, well, the military industrial complex is a thing, and we all kind of get that. Like, that's not. I'm not talking about lizard people. I'm just, you know, Raytheon. You can go visit. You can visit North Rock. There's like about 50 or 60 companies. Those are the big ones mentioned. And I'll even say this. I don't know what people's take on this would be if they get to this. I actually had a change of heart politically, in a way. And I'll explain thing. Like with what happened in Palestine, Israel, I was always on the side of Palestine. Almost always, the most part. I've taken some like deeper introspection in it, and I'm still on the side of Palestine. But I can see like, okay, this has been going on for years. Two countries would be preferable, in my opinion. I'd like to see them work out more. I'm not so much like but where I kind of changes, I'm like, okay, fine. I can see like the Israeli citizens have their points and the Palestinians have theirs. It's not something we should be involved in. I'm still super anti-Zionist, but I do feel bad for them because their government just keeps whoever it is, Naftali Bennett, Benjamin Bibi Netanyahu, as they call him, just keep pushing this on it. And as much as I disagree with some of their policy towards the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, I don't like what's happening to them. And I'm not a supporter. I'm anti-Hamas too. So what I'd like to see is more social cooperation between the two. I've kind of softened my stance on a lot of things. I'm kind of like a little bit where Jordan Peterson is with this issue. And yeah, that's kind of been my political evolution. I used to be super against one thing. I'm never talking to you. Now I see what's going on and see they're trying to resist their own government as well. And to me, it's a problem of government, not so much the problem of the average Jewish person or Israeli. That being said, so I changed my stance a little bit. What is Israel doing? They're going to offer a fourth dose. And I'm telling you, if you don't resist it at 3, they'll do a fourth one. And they'll make it, man, and you'll say, like, how do you know that? I can just kind of tell by these people's incentives. They'll put a 5th one. They'll put a 10th one. I posted a joke, like, you know, free Pfizer, like, you know, get a free pizza or loyalty card. And it had, like, 2 shots and then 8 boosters and then free pizza. So it could happen. So people who are older than 60 or compromised immune systems and health workers, so people who work in hospitals, as part of a drive to ramp up these medical procedures to outpace the spread of something that's not harmful, the Health Ministry expert panel, whose findings have yet to be implemented, recommended on Tuesday that those eligible should receive a 4th. We're up to 4 now, at least 4 months after getting the 3rd. And trust me, they'll do a 5th and they'll push it here too. How do I know that? Well, I can kind of see how these authoritarians work. Prime Minister Naftali Bennett sought to drum up higher Israeli turnout for this medical procedure and welcomed the panel's statements as great news. They'll help us overcome Omicron that's spreading throughout the world. Maybe you should see what the South African doctor said. Such measures would be a part of preparation for the fifth wave of what's going on right now, said the panel statements, which did not present specific data behind the recommendations. We're seeing a waning of protection against Omicron. This wave is growing in surprising numbers. More than 8% of the panel supported the measure. So Israel is really, they've had a very high turnout. About 62% of the 9.4 million population have got at least 2 of these medical procedures. The way I'm looking at this is, if you keep complying, there'll be a 4th, there'll be a 5th, there'll be a 6th, and they'll name another variant. I don't know what it'll be called, the Alpha, Lambda, Delta, I'm scary variant. Oh, now we got to do 7 shots. Now we got to do 10. Now you got to be on a subscription service. You still have to wear a mask everywhere. You have to hang, behind the thing and then do chin-ups and say you love the state. Like, they're not going to stop. As the meme says with Lisa Simpson, compliance is not a reward for freedom. That's how prison works. Do you want this to be a prison planet? Because if you do, keep going. They'll do the exact same thing here. I really do believe they will. I could be wrong, but I believe they will. What should you do? In my opinion, Germany has it right. Thousands protest against Rona measures across the country. Thousands of people, they will not show you this on the mainstream media. They're too busy trying to cover for Fauci and say, oh, it's okay, he didn't mean it. They're never going to bring this up. But thousands of people demonstrated against these rules in several major cities, whether these include Hamburg, Dusseldorf, and people who deny, I love deniers, have become increasingly displeased with virus-regulated regulations. And they're not denying that something's going on. They're tired of government overreach. How about that? Anti-authoritarians is maybe a better word than pandemic deniers. They always have to demonize the opposition through semantics. So, what are they doing in Germany? We can see these different things. People who are opposed to this demonstrated in several cities. Several people took to the streets in the northern port of Hamburg, then marched several blocks through the city center. Police said about 8,000 attendees were registered. No compulsory medical procedures written on a card. Hands off our children. To basically translate this, mein Kind ist nicht dein Superhero Pfizer. My child is not your superhero Pfizer. Because as you've seen probably with the New Jersey commercials, probably with a lot of commercials in America, they're doing soft coercion by saying, hey, I don't want toys. I don't want games. What do I want, Santa? I want this medical procedure. Woo, that's what superheroes do. I'm like, oh my God. How low are they going to stoop? So what's going on in Dusseldorf is an estimated 4,000 protesters marched through the city center and around 1,000 were registered. Dusseldorf takes a stand, and they had counter-protests with 200 participants to show you where that's at. They are pushing this medical procedure for children based on these different recommendations, and there's a lot of parents divided on this issue. A lot of these protesters are taking place in the financial hub, Am, as well as the southern cities of Karlsruhe and Freiburg. Police said 3,500 people marched through the city of Freiburg, adding that they sporadically split in groups because some attendees were not wearing their obligatory face masks, which is funny. So what I'm going to say here, I'm not going to keep hampering on this because you can find this article at d.com/Germany. These people are actually taking a stand. If you want to take a stand, because now what are they doing? Oh, 5th wave, 6th wave. It's going to be like the war on terror. It's never going to end. The war on terror even didn't end. They just got out of Afghanistan. We're still in Iraq, Syria, probably Yemen, and things like that. This is not going to end. We're going to be up to the 10th wave by the end of 2022 if they don't say anything. The good thing is Germany is not complying as much as you would think. They have a relatively low rate, with just 70% of the total population inoculated against it, over 6.76 million cases, and they have over 100,000 deaths that have been reported since the start of this pandemic. So I just hit those two. I think I lost Daniel, so give me 1 second. Just 1 second, guys. Had a little bit of a break in communication. Okay, Daniel is back in the chat, so we're going to get Daniel back in here. Give me 1 second. Daniel, are you back with me? Just giving it a second. Come on here. I will be right back, guys. I'm just going to give Daniel a call, and then we will be back to it. Did have a little break in communication. This does happen when you live stream, so I will be right back. Giving it just a second, guys, to see if I can get Daniel back here. All right. Daniel is having some connection issues, so let's go ahead and break the last stories here really, really quick. So, in other news, from We Are Change, the world's most prestigious medical journal is now roasting Facebook over inaccurate and incompetent, irresponsible fact checking. So, if you've been fact checked and you're wondering, well, maybe Zuckerberg has some cracks in the ship, they're not exactly omnipotent. And if you saw the new case with John Stossel, he got them to admit fact checks are just opinions. They're not fact checking, they're having contradictory opinions based on a mainstream media article, which is super biased. So the expert at shutting down any conflicting narrative, basically for the Biden administration, has been Facebook by fact checking. Now I think they've met their match with one of the world's oldest, most prestigious medical journals delivering false information that could mislead people, and that is the British Medical Journal. And if you're not familiar with BMJ, it's basically a weekly peer-reviewed medical trade journal published by the trade union British Medical Association. And they published a whistleblower report calling into question the data integrity, regulatory oversight issues surrounding a lot of Pfizer's pivotal cases in this COVID-19 medical procedure. So, what did they say? She said when they found issues, a regional director who was employed at the research organization Ventiva Research Group has told the British Medical Journal that the company falsified data on blinded patients, employed inadequate trained people who were giving this medical procedure, was slow to follow up on adverse events, VAERS reporting in Pfizer's pivotal phase of, and I believe there were multiple phases, so don't quote me exactly where they reported it, but they reported it in Pfizer's pivotal phase of their third trial, and the staff who conducted the quality control checks were overwhelmed by the volume of problems they were finding. After repeated notifying of Ventiva of these problems, the regional director, Brooke Jackson, emailed a compliant U.S. Food and Drug Administration, and Ventiva later fired her the same day. The British Medical Journal, with dozens of internal company documents, photos, audio recordings, and emails. So, I'm not going to say the British Medical Journal is the ultimate go-to place or the ultimate one that has all the say, but they're one of the world's best as far as I'm concerned. And the issue I have here is they're afraid of any dissenting opinion. They're afraid of any opinion that's going to challenge the mainstream narrative. Now, when you see stuff like that, you have to call into question, what are they hiding? And if you don't, then they're going to keep doing the same thing. A lot of this comes down to questioning the official narrative and just saying no. If you're able to do that, you'll be able to stop this. Why? Because they're not going to stop. They have a narrative, they have an agenda, they have incentives, they're going to follow them out. Just to kind of finish this story up, in my opinion, the most important thing to take away from here, independent fact checkers concluded information could mislead people, but those who were trying to post the article were informed by Facebook. People who repeatedly share false information might have their posts removed because they're saying it's partly false. They're saying they're aware the British Medical Journal is not the only high-quality information source provider to have been affected by the incompetence of Meta's fact-checking regime, rather than investing a portion of Meta's substantial profits to ensure the accuracy of medical information shared through social media. You apparently delegated responsibility to people incompetent in carrying out this crucial task. Fact-checking has been a staple of good journalism for decades. What has happened in this instance should be of concern to anyone who values and relies on sources such as the British Medical Journal. So I'm not saying it's the only one. I'm not saying it's out there. But the fact that fact checkers are scared of a highly publicized journal should at least get you to think and question. But it's good to see some pushback against some of these big, tech conglomerates. Why is that? Because people should be able to get information out there, and people should be allowed to challenge information. As far as I'm concerned, that's how you get the best decision making possible. So, journalist Alex Berenson is suing Twitter for violating the First Amendment over his permanent ban for questioning these different procedures. What did he do? On Monday, he filed basically a federal lawsuit challenging his Twitter ban. He was banned in August for just questioning the efficacy of these medical procedures. And former New York Times reporter has been a noted mask and lockdown skeptic. So Berenson actually did file. He's fighting back. He has a lawsuit filed on Monday in the U.S. District of Northern California. Seeks Berenson to be reinstated to Twitter and unspecific monetary damages over his permanent ban in August. Now we can see this here. What he's saying is it doesn't stop the infection. It doesn't stop the transmission. I don't think of it as a normal medical procedure. I think of it at best as a therapeutic with limited window of efficacy and terrible side effect profile that must be dosed in advance of illness. And we want to mandate it. Insanity. And I'm not even going to go into like the whole detail of the article. They have a detailed 7D compliant, alleges that Twitter is legally a common carrier, similar to Railroad or Telegram. I would say based on Section 230 that they're a public square and he should be allowed to have his opinion, just like people who disagree with him should be allowed to have their opinion. But we're only seeing one side, and that should bother you. And from what he's saying, I don't think, based even on the CDC's data, that there's any contradictory information that anyone can find, because people have been known to get this medical procedure and then also, in turn, get this illness. So, yeah, you can basically go based off what he's talking about here, make your own decision, see what you think. But I think it's very, very clear one side's being represented, one side is not being represented. And this should bother you. It should bother you because the voice of just dissenting, he's not even saying you shouldn't go get it. If you want to go get it, you can go get it, but realize that it may not stop you from even getting it. And there's a plethora of potential side effects that could be worse than actually contracting the illness. Last but not least, this is at Health Impact News. So what's going on is school district in New York is putting out email warnings for parents of sudden cardiac arrest in students grades K through 12. Now, I know what they're going to try and do here, so you need to be careful. They're going to try and say, well, this is just normal, or they're going to try and normalize this, and it's not. This is the thing you have to look out for. You have to not comply. You have to look at contradictory information and then look at what they're trying to hide. You also have to stop them from just normalizing bad things. See, what happened in the war on terror is they normalized, okay, we're just going to invade a country. We're just in this country, that country, that country. Not even a declaration from Congress after Iraq. They just normalized all this bad behavior. They normalized all this bad foreign policy. Now they're going to normalize all this bad medical policy. So what's going on is Eastport South Manor Central School District, ESM, in Suffolk County, New York, sent out emails to all parents informing them about the new physician in their district. The new hiring was part of new regulations regarding sudden cardiac arrests of students grades K through 12. That is not normal. I don't care if they put that out normal. I'm not saying a kid can't have a heart attack, but to have this being widespread, no, I don't think that's normal at all. I don't know why people, if you're watching this, there's no reason to think that's normal or that should be warranted. The Gateway Pundit obtained a copy of the email where ESM stated that there's a new regulation where all districts are now required to ensure that nurses and coaches can address treatment and monitoring of students who exhibit signs and symptoms of sudden cardiac arrest. In addition, districts are required to make sure that all the staff are aware of all warning signs such as cardiac arrest and what to do if a person experiences cardiac arrest. And the email continued. A concerned parent reached out to the Gateway Pundit saying that the email is very suspicious considering New York is very close to mandating this medical procedure for students who attend school. I find it disturbing that they're now bringing on new medical staff who specialize in sudden cardiac arrest, considering we are seeing a lot of adolescents and athletes dying days after getting this medical procedure. It seems like they're preparing for this. And there's also experts from Vancouver. But what I'm going to tell you is this is not normal. Do not put this as normal. This is actually good that parents are kind of getting concerns out there, that parents are actually worried about what's going to go on, because if you keep accepting these bad things as normal, well, they're going to shift what normal is. They're going to shift the goalposts just like they did. That's what governments seem to do. So with all of that, I just kind of want to get into your head with all these different stories. There is some pushback, which is good. We need to see more pushback. We need to see more people saying no. We need to see more people standing up. We need to see more people questioning the official narrative. This is the only way to beat this. I do not believe for a second that if you just put Republicans or Democrats or vice versa, then magically everything will go back to the way it was. I don't think we're going back to the way it was. The world's going to be transformed forever. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed the show. I really want to thank everybody who stayed for it, even though we had a couple connection issues, which does happen during the live stream. Daniel will be back for the next show. If you're interested in taking a look at his or my work, you can do so. All you need to do is go ahead and go over to youtube.com. When you're at YouTube, basically what you want to do is go to the search here, type in Daniel B, and then you'll be able to find Daniel's work. Not only has he done some amazing lectures, he's done quite a few live streams with myself and some information that you might find very, very interesting, like talking about Bill Gates, talking about Tesla, and other very, very interesting things, even talking about ideas of UFOs, religion. And if you want to find our work, you can definitely do so at The Essential Libertarians. Just type that in, giving you the tools for self-governance. Thank you very much for tuning in, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I will see you next time.